everyday witches emerge from the shadows of secrecy. Broom closets are flinging open and witches are taking flight. Whether you are hiding in your cozy closet or flying with pride, stay for a spell as Witchcasting with Theodora Pendragon and her guests share magical moments, stir the cauldron, and debunk misinformation and misconceptions about paganism, witches, and our wonderful world of magic.
I'm your host, Theodora Pendragon, and we are here for another episode. And today, my special guest is Scarlet Darkwood. Hello, Scarlet.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So, where do we begin? Would you like to introduce yourself and let the listeners know a little bit about you?
Sure, I would love to. I got my beginnings in the spiritual side of things in the year 2000. I joined the Rosicrucian Order Amorc, and the names and the organization stuck with me from a friend I met at work years earlier. So when I saw their name in the back of Renaissance magazine, I thought, okay, this is it. This is my chance to join. So I joined the order. I stayed in it for 10 years. I got into the 11th degree, got out of it for 10 years due to cost. They took everything online, brought the price down, and I rejoined about 2 or 3 years ago. And so now I'm in the 12th level, which means that's a high-level initiate. And not a lot of people commit and do all those years and get that far. So it laid a nice foundation into teachings other than the Abrahamic religions. It went beyond that. And it just introduced me into a whole new world. And so I've been really studying mysticism for over 20 years. And when I started writing, my latest novels, fiction novels, were about witches. Well, I didn't get into witchcraft or witches because, Rosicrucians don't teach that. Definitely Abrahamic religions are going to say no, no, no. So, that gets really hammered into you. But I thought, well, I'm a fiction writer and I'm having to look up a lot of things. I thought, I wonder if there's a way to study this without having to look up everything. If I'm going to write about witches, what do I need to know? And I was watching another YouTuber and they mentioned the Witches Box, which has now stopped. And the website is the School of Holy Witchery, which I'm continuing. Though I don't identify as a witch, I do witchy things. And so when I joined and got the box, I just fell in love with the owner and the teachings, and I realized that there is this big overlap, that really all of this is a spiritual path, and it's to divine connection. Even if you get into high magic, angels, demons, that type of entity as well, it's all about connecting with the higher parts of yourself. And that whole bit has gotten so corrupted, I think, by, I would say, patriarchy and by Abrahamic religions that it's really kept people steeped in ignorance and darkness, really. When you learn the witchy stuff or mysticism, you learn how to get in touch with your own power. And though mystics go inward, witches go outward. They tend to build the altars, do the herbs, the crystals, the rituals and invocations. The thing I like about it that I discovered is I like doing that outward as well as the inward. There are times I just go inward, but there are a lot of times I'll go inward than outward as an outward display. And in my opinion, and on my YouTube channel, I did a whole video on this, I think it's still all getting in touch with your higher self first on a level. And then you may express that outwardly through your rituals, your altars. And that's just how I came to be where I am and how I've become more comfortable with this other aspect of connecting.
Do you yourself have altars?
I do. Actually, Rosicrucians have altars. You have an altar space and you have things they, suggest you put on it. It used to, you could go to their store and buy, the aprons, the crosses, the candle, whatever you wanted. Now that's gotten more decentralized. I think on Amazon you might can get some of this. But with my altar, not only do I have like the Rosicrucian cross, I'll put crystals on it. I will put, if I'm doing a certain ritual, I'll put the items I'm using. It'll be the herbs. I make my little oil candles. I watched WitchCon, and Kenya Koviak was teaching about lanterns or candles, oil, and the things you could put in it. And I fell in love with it. So I would get like a little sauce cup, a metal sauce cup, get a cotton wick and pour olive oil, sunflower oil, whatever you're wanting to use, sprinkle the herbs in it, and I would light it. So I've created my own little burning candles that way. So it changes out with every ritual, and that's how I use that. Sometimes I will burn candles. I have tons of candles. I have an obsession for them. And so I always have something on the altar, either a candle burning or crystals or a pendant, like I've got the fourth pentacle of Jupiter, because I'm wanting to expand my tarot business and just bring prosperity to that, building my business. So right now I have the fourth pentacle of Jupiter on my altar, as well as the candles.
You started the Scarlet Mystic School. Tell us about the school.
This school happened as a total accident. I'm not going to lie about that. I took some business courses from Leonie Dawson. She's out of Australia, and she was offering a special deal for her whole library of videos. And one of them was create an e-course. Well, I've written books. I've created e-books. I've done audiobooks. I've done that. And I thought, okay, create a course. I thought, well, that sounds interesting. I was very intrigued, so I thought, like what everybody does, let me do a tarot course since I do tarot. I'm a certified tarot reader, and I thought, let me just do a course. But this one is a little different because it's self-coaching with tarot. So if you have a burning question in the middle of the night, you can pull the cards, follow the worksheets, and kind of explore some of that on your own. But the tarot cards meanings have included with them the mystical side of it. I've also joined Builders of the Adytum. There's a whole mystical piece to tarot that you don't get in those book guides. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be neat to do a course on that? And so my first course, Self-Coach with Tarot, Living Your Authentic Life, goes over the cards. It goes what coaching is, what tarot is. It goes into all the cards. And not only do I briefly go over the traditional meanings, I also incorporate the mystical piece to it. Now, it's a very nice, top the surface, because you can get into this stuff so deep it makes your head spin on the mystical piece. But when you go on into a platform like Thinkific or Teachable or whatever, they're going to ask you, what do you want to name your site? And I thought, what do I want to name my site? So I thought, well, I go by the Scarlet Mystic. Let's call it the Scarlet Mystic School. It's like a mystery or a mystic school. So that's my first course, and I'm now working on a second course. I want it to be with courses that people can take. And my second course now is how do tarot, mysticism, and the occult really intersect? So I'm going over, what is the tarot? What is mysticism? What is the occult? What are some of those traditions? How do they intersect? How are they different? I just thought that would be good for somebody who just would really like a good overview of all of that. And so my plan is to add more courses so it is truly a school with classes. And that's how that whole thing started. So now I'm just trying to build the business. I'm offering a 55% discount on the course. If somebody goes to the website and clicks on it, they can type in AUTHLIFE, AUTHLIFE, at checkout and get a 55% discount. It's a $97 class for a $43, and there's over 5 hours of time.
And what's the website?
You can get on scarletdarkwood.com, and there are buttons that will link to it.
Scarlet?
Yeah, scarletdarkwood.com. 1 T, no 2.
My dog's name is Scarlet, and she spells her name with 2 T's.
Scarlet O'Hara do with 2 T's too. I can't remember. I read the book, but
It's a beautiful name, by the way.
that's how I've come to be. That's how the school has come to being birthed, and how it will breathe and live its life. I've got to add to it. And now I think I'm finding myself on how do I want to present things, or what do I want to offer to people that's a little different if I can go down that road. It's finding myself right now.
It's about what is your purpose and how to help other people and paying it forward.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people tend to go through certain things. You can look up certain rituals like lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram and the hexagram and the middle pillar. Those are all new to me. I'm not a Thelemite or into Thelema or Crowley. Rosicrucians don't teach that. But what I do like about it, and I'm taking a course right now, Magick Without Tears, with Marco Visconti. He's from Italy, living in England, but he's been a Thelemite for many, many years. He's in his mid-40s. And what I'm learning about this is that there are exercises that keep you spiritually fit. A mystic's going to teach you to meditate daily or more than once daily and, tune in that way. These are almost like they're little like exercises you can do at different times of the day to actually welcome in parts of yourself, though you're turning your attention more to, the morning, the noon, and the night, and the dusk, and that type of thing. But it's a way to keep you spiritually connected and in shape. So it's a different approach. And I like that idea, though I'm not a ritualistic person, like I don't say prayers every night. I should meditate every day. I don't. Sometimes I get into the habit of it and then I get out of the habit. But I like the idea that if you're not doing anything else, you can always stay in tune by doing those exercises. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to go walk tonight and just keep my body in shape a little bit. I'm going to do some movement. So those are things that I'm learning, but you see courses on that, you see books on some of that. There's some different books you can get. I'm trying to think, what could I offer or teach surrounding different things that would be a little different, an adjunct, a different viewpoint, and that would be my goal.
Tell us what the differing beliefs between mysticism and those who practice magic.
Mysticism is always about light, life, and love. It's always about doing the higher good. And it's usually through visualization and meditation that you focus on. You'll go to a quiet place or go to your altar. You'll do your breathing to open up your psychic centers, and you'll begin tuning in. And you will be visualizing if you want to do something, or you will be taking in impressions that you get as you tune in. What are you seeing in your mind's eye? If it's for direction or something you need to do or be aware of. So it's very inward that way. There's nothing, you will burn some candles or incense if you like. But that's the extent of it. I'm not saying it's not powerful, because Rosicrucians, for example, will teach you how to petition the cosmic or God or that higher force. Very simple ways to do that. They also teach you some other ways that if you are wanting something from somebody or trying to seek assistance, they have a way to do that. But it's very simple, very low key, not a lot of big to do, not a lot of ritual with it. And really you're getting in contact with your higher self. With magic, it's more of an outward display. It's more of, you're still moving energy either way. It's just that magic in the Wiccan sense or another pagan sense, it tends to be more outward. People are putting in items that represent something they want. They burn the candles, they can burn the incense, they use herbs, they use crystals, they may set up grids, they may set up, use puppets or dolls to do something. It's very visual. when they do that. And whether they really try to meditate or get in contact with their higher self is questionable. Some may. I have a friend who says, I think it happens by default. I don't know that it's a more conscious effort to get in touch with the higher self. I have a friend who is a solo practitioner. She said, I don't care about getting in touch with my higher self. I want to go through a conduit. Like, she uses the Greek pantheon. So as to where mystics are all about your own inner power and direct divine connection, witchy people or occult or magic in the other sense, people may use entities, demons, angels. They may use the Greek or Roman pantheon. They'll use gods, goddesses to help them with their work. So they might be relying on an outward conduit or an outward source. The whole idea with both, where this intersects, is they both want to move energy. They want to affect a change. And so they're each taking a different path to do that. Like, there's more ways than one to the mountaintop. But those are the differences. And a lot of time magicians may not be so mystical in that way. If you're into Thelema or that group, and I'm just learning about Thelema or from a Thelemite's point of view, they are very much into connection with the divine, and they do talk that mystic speak. So that's probably even more of a stronger intersection if you go into Aleister Crowley's Thelema tradition. Other people develop their own ways. They use gods and goddesses, and they come up with their own rituals and spells. Sometimes, they'll create money jars, spell jars. They'll do sigils and drawings. Mysticism, you would do none of that.
There are so many options. So what would you recommend to someone if they're wanting to start their own path? Let's just say they want to leave their religion of origin and they're trying to find a new path. What are your recommendations?
Honestly, my recommendation is to start with mysticism. And I say that only because it lays a beautiful foundation for everything. When you study mysticism and all the energy principles and all the natural laws and principles about how the universe works, when you study these other paths, you're going to jump into it if you choose to go that way. Some people don't. I mean, there are Rosicrucians, you mentioned witchcraft or other occult stuff, and they will absolutely bare their teeth at you, like the best Christian, So, I would say if you're really nervous and you're just kind of a little, intimidated, but you're enough interested that you want to go into it, I would say start with mysticism, because it's gentle and it explains everything. And you're like, oh, wow. So when you take that in and learn that, then if you want to go farther and say, okay, let me explore this avenue, you'll determine if it resonates with you or not. And you can either continue the outward approach to blend in or not. But here's the other thing. I'm a Rosicrucian member with the Rosicrucian Order, Amorc. There are other Rosicrucian groups. And there's one I just stumbled upon that is from the Society of the Rosicrucianis of the Americas. It seems to be more geared toward Thelema and Order of the Golden Dawn. So there are lots of Rosicrucian groups out there. The official Rosicrucian Order that states they're from the original Rosicrucians from the 1600s and earlier on back to ancient Egypt. It's the Rosicrucian Order, Amorc, and Rosicrucian.org is their website. And they have tons of free information.
You mentioned a few times scary, that people may find mysticism and magic scary. Why do you think that is?
I think when you're told you're dying and going to hell if you do anything other than what's been hammered in your head, that is scary because you're thinking, oh, what if they're right? And people hold on to that so strongly that they're not even comfortable exploring something. Why I was? Probably because I didn't have that hammered. Now, I'm not saying my parents weren't Christian or weren't religious. They just didn't hammer stuff in my head that way, though they would never agree with mysticism or occult at all. But it's scary for people because you've been told, probably since the day you were born, that you are dying and going to hell if you do anything other than what the churches teach you. And what people don't realize with this is actually mysticism and occultism will bring you closer to God or the cosmic or that intelligence better than any church will. That's what people don't understand. And when I understood the witchy side, I wasn't scared of it anymore. I'm thinking, oh, well, this is just another way to spirituality. This is another way of exercising your power. When people are scared and they're afraid about what they're going to find, I do say mysticism is, especially with the Rosicrucian Order Amorc, it's very orderly, it's very organized, and it will take you from step one onward. The 15 months should get you the basics. And if you choose to go longer, you can. You can also join Builders of the Adytum, or BOTA, B-O-T-A. And they will teach you tarot, gematria, Kabbalah, and they do that in their own organized way. And they also teach you in a very methodical step a lot of the principles of how the universe works, how our mind works, how our thoughts work, and how we can manifest. And they do mention magic. They do quotes from Eliphas Levi. So they're a little twist on the mystic aspect. They will get more into how do I use my mind and my conscious, my superconscious and subconscious to manifest.
And with the Abrahamic religions, they teach helplessness.
They do. Leave it to God. Leave it. It must be God's will. Don't do anything else. Just pray. And let's look at this for a minute. When you pray, it's basically not that it's bad. It's just when you're doing a ritual or you're doing a meditation, you're visualizing, you're very intent, you're focused, and it's a very different way than a passive prayer. And if you go a witchy route or an occult route, you're going to go even a more amped up way and say, I'm going to build a visual for this. And let me tell you, what BOTA teaches is what your conscious focus is on, or what you're bringing into your conscious awareness, it's going to feed your subconscious, and that's where the magic happens. It's like the subconscious is the link to conscious and superconscious. That's where everything goes. And when you see that altar and you see all that and you're walking by that, it's feeding your subconscious. It's feeding that. And Abrahamic religions aren't going to teach you that. A prayer just saying, oh, dear Lord, we ask that you do da-da-da-da-da in Jesus' name. That's it. Okay, well, that's fine. But to me, with magic, mysticism, occult, you're going to do so much more. And, and while Jesus is a great cosmic master, he's my cosmic master. Jesus was a mystic. He was an adept. And he was trying to teach us these things. We didn't have, websites back then and ways to get the word out to the masses. But he was trying to teach people these things, and he was good at it. And he was saying, when you get good at it, you'll be even better than I am. And that's what he meant by that, because we can be, because, we all have our own way. You don't leave anything to God. Mysticism will teach you God really has very little to do with anything, that it's really you. Now, God and the spirits may be architectural. I made up my own word, architecturalize things. They set the stage. If I do something, a new stage is set. If I don't do something, a new stage is set. They're the architects of the universe. They set the stage. We control what we do on it. So you don't have to leave it to God. Mysticism will teach that you are an emanation of the divine. You take control. You do it. You do the work. And you don't be helpless. You don't need to be helpless. You don't leave it to God. You leave it to yourself, and you take action and you do something. And you do something to affect that change and to make something better or affect a better outcome. And God's will is not that bad things happen to people. When somebody gets murdered, it must have been God's will. And the Rosicrucians will say that is absolutely absurd. Your divine creator would never will for something that to happen. The thing of it is we live on this planet Earth. It's a testing ground for everything. It's a testing ground for us to use our power, to learn about it, to use it. And unfortunately, you have different people at all different evolutionary levels, some lower, some higher, and some people just behave badly, and there can be bad outcomes. And that's why the bad things happen.
I have a neighbor who asked me not too long ago if I would cast a spell so that she could lose weight. I told her it doesn't work that way. The power is within you. I can't cast a spell so that you lose weight. I can help you. I can teach you how to do that, but it's not hocus pocus like on television.
Exactly. Yeah. No, we're not cinematic. I call it cinematic witches. Like in my fiction novels, sigils are going to glow. People are going to cast a spell on a wand and something's going to happen. This fiction. It doesn't work that way in real life. And I do sell what I call meditations kits. I had to rename them because if I do craft shows, they don't want a spell kit. But we all know what it is. And I do have one for kickstop bad habits. And that could be for weight loss or cigarettes or drugs. But here's the thing. That whole thing is to remind you that you're going to set the tone for that by you picking up this kit and pouring the oil in the cup and putting the little herbs in it, and also created a petition, a petition that you can read. The person reads that, and when they're done, they can burn it, light the candle, and they're done. It's to remind them that I'm going to go on this path of breaking this addiction, or if it's finding love, that I'm going to open up the way to find a partner. That's what that is. And the way I've written those invocations is to be very positive, like they already have it. And that is for people who they don't know magic, they don't understand it, but they really would like to try something. So I've tried to, in my best way, to bring them into part of that ritual. You're right. Some people will say, well, why on earth would somebody want somebody else to work the magic for them? The thing about it is that the majority of us do not know mysticism or magic.
On your website, Scarlet Darkwood, you offer quite a bit.
I do. You can buy tarot sessions from me. I call myself an alternative therapist. I actually have a degree in psych nursing, but I didn't get certified as a nurse. Years later, I was just done with school. It was expensive. When I had graduated, you could just use your degree. At any rate, it got me management jobs, but I thought this would be a great way to use those skills, but in a very different angle. So a lot of my services are tarot related. I do have an Etsy shop that I sell, stones or other supplies if you would like it. I also have my Scarlet Mystic School for right now. If somebody would like to learn a simple, straightforward tarot course, about the cards, I've got that. I feel like I do offer quite a bit. On my YouTube channel, I try to teach, as best I can on different subjects about magic, mysticism, tarot.
What is your YouTube channel?
It's Scarlet Darkwood author. I believe that. Yeah. If you type in Scarlet Darkwood, it should come up.
So everything's Scarlet Darkwood.
You could Google it. Yeah. It'll come. My Facebook business page will come up. Maybe my author page will. My website will come up. My tarot teacher said, she said, I just love that name. Said you need to build it off that. You need to use that name.
You have a fabulous name, Scarlet Darkwood.
Yeah. I ran a certain name through a goth name generator years ago just for giggles and grins. And that's what came up. That's what I stuck with.
And that's how you found your name. The beauty is that we can pick our own names. We don't have to be stuck with what our parents gave us.
No, my parents would never name me Scarlet Darkwood. Never. Not going to happen.
And my parents would have never named me Theodora Pendragon either.
Well, I'm reading a book now, High Magic by Damien Eccles. I have just been fascinated by Damien Eccles. But when he got baptized, in the Catholic Church, he's talking about his journey, and he he used his saint name, Damien. And so that's what he writes under. And he has books. He talks about his journey. He got imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. He, along with two other young men, they were teenagers at the time.
I remember that story. Yeah, you want to tell that story?
Yeah, so he's from Arkansas and very poor, grew up very poor, just crazy life. And so as he matured and became a teenager, he got into heavy metal music, goth look, T-shirts with Metallica on it, things that a country town, southern town would not like at all. So he had some run-ins with the law anyway. And not that he was a bad person. I think he was just, a rebel. Anyway, 3 little boys get murdered. 3 little 8-year-old boys get murdered. And the police pin the crime on Damien and his 2 friends. Young teenagers. Damien's only 18 at the time. His 2 friends are younger. Botched trial. Anyway, he gets life on death row. The other 2 get life in prison. He said, but I've always been drawn to spirituality. He learns magic in prison, and he said it was the magic, he said, I believe, that really saved me. Magic and the drawing in of support from others that saved me from death row, because he had watched like 20, 30 people get executed in his 18 to 20 years in prison. And so he wrote the book High Magic, and I'm making my way through it, and it's talking about the breath work, the breathing exercises. He's going to tell you how to do lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. He's going to teach you how to do the middle pillar. So he goes into all those things he did in prison to help him. And in his book, Life After Death, he goes more into his journey of how he grew up and what led him to where he was until he got out. But he also has a YouTube channel as well, and he goes into a lot of this. Very organized, beautifully spoken, and you can learn a lot. I mean, this guy had a lot of time in prison, probably the darkest night of any soul somebody could go through, knowing that you could be dead at any moment. Crazy situations, and solitary, they say, is really the worst. So the latter part of his sentence was in solitary, when he was not with the other people. He said, I think anybody else or a lot of other people would have just died inside. He said, I managed to hold it together, but magic helped him do that. He would do exercises for hours and hours a day.
He was on death row, but then got out.
Yeah, it was with what they called an Alford plea, which says they're innocent, but there's still this thing of a crime hanging over them. And so that was the only way they could get out, and which was unusual to have that happen. But he and his 2 friends got out. And he is now behind the Innocence Project, where he's wanting to help people who have been unjustly accused. And I actually went and signed that petition last night. But, I mean, he's now trying to get exonerated from this because, he's technically not exonerated from it. But it was just a lot of mishandling of information, even not allowing certain DNA. DNA testing got him off, but there's more DNA testing that could exonerate him. And so, it's still struggling with that. But he believes in magic. He said, I want to teach as many people as I can about how to connect with their higher self and how to use magic. And he said, because it saved my life, he said, I believe in it. I think people need to know about it. And he still is on the very thing, people said, oh, he killed these boys for a satanic ritual. Well, that was not true. Anyway, he is trying to teach people how to become more connected to their higher selves.
Scarlet Darkwood, that's about all the time we have today. Is there anything else you would like to tell the listeners before we turn off?
Please don't be scared. If you have an inkling that you want to explore more out there, at least study mysticism, because that will be a beautiful introduction and you can go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Witchcasting with Theodora Pendragon. Have a burning question or have a topic you'd love Theodora and her guests to discuss on the show? Contact her through Instagram at Theodora Pendragon. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And help us spread the word by leaving us a rating and review and sharing it with your friends. See you next time, and may your magic always shine.